Joining me now is my Friday panel Managing Director of PR Council, Christy McSweeney, and New South Wales One Nation leader, Tania Mihailuk. Hi to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Look, let's start with this juvenile anti-nuclear scare campaign being waged by Labor. You know, Tania, we've seen the images over the last 24 hours, cartoons, three-eyed fish. This is what your dog will look like under Labor. Why do you think the Labor Party are just so unwilling to have a mature debate about this?
Because the Labor Party is very juvenile, okay, and they can see this as an opportunity to scare people. They love scare campaigns, let's be honest. The Labor Party is all about scare campaigns. They know they're not polling very well, so they've taken this as an opportunity to go, hey, let's get the fear-mongering propaganda out. Look, it's very disappointing because when you think about this, the Labor Party was very keen to sign up to $360 billion for nuclear submarines. So what kind of message is that, okay? We're okay with nuclear submarines. We have an amazing nuclear medicine industry in Australia. We're pioneers when it comes to nuclear medicine. So what are we saying about nuclear now? You know, we're the only G20 country out there that's not prepared to actually consider nuclear energy. It's absurd. We've got the largest uranium deposits in the world, and yet we're not considering nuclear energy. Can I just say very quickly, I want to credit Peter Dutton for being courageous. Well done to him for being courageous this week. We haven't seen that level of courage for probably several, 2 decades at least in Australia. The last Prime Minister, I think, who was pretty courageous was Bob Hawke, and Bob Hawke actually made the point in 2016, he made the point to the Labor Party that nuclear energy would be a win for Australia and a win for the environment.
Well,
so maybe Albanese should actually take words from a great mentor of his, Bob Hawke.
You'd hope so.
You'd hope so. But the other thing I do need to say this, Danica, is that the Liberal Party does have a problem, though. Peter Dutton might be strong on this. In New South Wales, it's been a different approach. It's important that we debate this and at least make it publicly clear. But you've seen 2 national state MPs already say that they don't want it in their backyard. Okay? They've come out this week and said, no, they don't want it in their backyard. You've had Anthony Roberts had a motion where he wanted to back Peter Dutton, and that was pulled by Mark Speakman this week. So what Dutton needs to do is make sure that his New South Wales counterparts are on the same page, because he's coming out there showing great leadership. He's opening up an industry that would provide so many jobs and opportunities for Australia. We can be out there at the forefront internationally when it comes to nuclear energy. And credit to him. But, again, still some problems there with the coalition in New South Wales. And the Labor Party, they will continue their scaremongering.
Of course they will.
And they won't change. And they see this just as an opportunity to divide people.
Absolutely. Look, that's a fair point. Christy, how much do you think this will be a referendum on energy at the next federal election?
Well, I think the media are certainly trying to frame it as a referendum on energy. And let's be very clear at looking at the language here and hearing the language. Labor brands energy and power as climate. The coalition brands energy and power as cost of living and ensuring Australia can meet its baseload manufacturing and its mining manufacturing needs. There is a number of stories yet to run in this strategy around what Peter Dutton has announced this week. It's firmly been established to wedge Labor. Labor has committed to nuclear submarines. They've also committed to $83 billion in Western Australia to build a new defence precinct, which is going to include the nuclear waste storage facility to meet the needs of the AUKUS investment. That is yet to run. Of course, Labor is in a battle with the Greens in that part of Western Australia. And there's a number of steps to go here. I think in time we'll see Peter Dutton being able to wedge Labor and get the mining companies, particularly our big coal and our big iron ore companies, to invest in a future fund style investment so the taxpayer can carry the future cost of nuclear energy. We know it's been government owned, and that's a way of ensuring the large mining sector's buy-in and establishing what the Liberal Party established previously in the Howard government, which is a future fund type insurance policy for major infrastructure. Subsequently, we have seen the death of private-public partnerships in Australia as we've done asset recycling, and we don't own anything anymore.
No.
We're going to own this, and people are criticising, saying it's back to nationalisation. Daniel Andrews proposed the SEC be returned here in Victoria, nationalising or state owning the electricity. Of course, it came to nothing. It was a failed policy rollout, and it still is. So it's not something that Labor necessarily disagrees with.
Yeah, it's just the language of it. That's the tricky part here. But look, in the dying days of Immigration Minister Andrew Giles's ill-fated Direction 99, another 2 criminals have been spared deportation, including a sex offender and a Tongan man who was twice convicted over his involvement in separate fatal road accidents. Tania, it just never ends. I've got to say, though, Andrew Giles he's been let off the hook over the nuclear debate. He's not in the spotlight, but
he's got enough problems.
He's got enough problems, but, here we go again.
Well, it's gone from the sublime to the ridiculous, hasn't it? Every week we see somebody, another criminal basically have their visa cancellation reversed on a legal technicality. And Giles, we know he's tainted with this. Can I just say, just talking about what should be an election issue, immigration should be an election issue. Okay?
Absolutely.
If there's ever an issue that people should decide who should govern Australia, it's on this issue of immigration. We've got record levels of migration coming into Australia. There's so much pressure on housing, so much pressure on energy pricing. We're going to see job losses in the future as well. We're heading into high unemployment, where there's so much pressure on our economy thanks to these levels of high immigration. And at the same time, you've got criminals getting away like this under Giles. Okay, they must be so happy they've got this refugee lawyer. This bleeding heart as their minister, and every week we'll see more and more of these sort of legal technicalities, because in the end, why are they even allowed to take their matters to court? Okay,
well,
why are they even allowed?
This is a holiday for them. They're holidaying under Direction 99, basically. Now, crimes perpetrated by children as young as 10 years old have soared to their highest levels since 2010. The statistics are frightening. In Victoria, children aged 14 to 17 were overrepresented in burglaries, assaults, robberies and car thefts, while baby-faced offenders aged 10 or 11 recorded a 52.6% spike in the number of offences committed. Christy, what on earth is going on in that state?
Youth crime in Victoria has been escalating for several years now. The opposition is rather silent on this due to their concerns around the last time they had someone run for election as the Premier of Victoria who focused heavily on crime. The electorate rejected that, and that strategy was widely touted as why. But there's no doubt that communities are very, very upset at the escalation and the lack of response. Near where I live, in Bayside, Melbourne, there's been a reduction in community policing. In fact, Rebecca Judd, who's a prominent Melburnian in that electorate where I live, is doing a better job of representing the interests of that community than many other people who are actually elected to do so. The Premier of Victoria and the Attorney General were wedged into a situation not long ago where they had to pull back on some of their crime legislation, which was going to have the presumption of bail and a whole range of things around the debate of criminal responsibility. And I think the Labor Party must have done some polling that tells them, Danica, that people agree with what we're talking about here tonight.
Yeah, was it Rebecca Judd who said the woke and broke? I think that may have been her words this week to describe the crisis there. But look, speaking of Victoria, the former Premier Daniel Andrews, fresh off the back of his Order of Australia, has now been named an inaugural patron of Labor Friends of Israel, which was created earlier this year to emphasise support for the State of Israel within the Labor movement. Tania, what do you make of this appointment?
Well, a shame he didn't do it when he was Premier, eh? He's waited till he's left office to take a strong position. Look, the Labor Party has a really big problem because over the last 2 decades it's entirely moved away from having a centred view on this. They're not a two-state solution policy in the Labor Party anymore. They're all about pro-Palestine. They've got so many party members now that are veered completely on the left on this issue. And they're being controlled by that. Instead of actually having a centred argument, the Labor Party is trying to match the Greens on this, okay? Yeah. They're battling out the Greens, and they're worried about their seats in Western Sydney, in New South Wales and Sydney. They're worried about their seats in Victoria. They're worried about the impact of the Greens. So they want to match the Greens on this issue. And the whole common sense debate's gone out the window. So at one stage, you could probably put everybody in a cupboard, the number of people that are pro-Israeli inside the Labor Party, let's be honest, okay? I'm good on them for setting up this pro-Israel group in the Labor Party, but the reality is they wouldn't have many members these days. The Labor Party has sadly taken a very strong approach, and you can see this pro-Palestine approach, despite the fact that Albanese's kind of tried to come back with that in the last couple of weeks. The problem is the party, there are so many members now that have gone completely left on this issue.
Absolutely.
And it's causing them a lot of issues. And I think in Victoria they're really worried about their seats because they've got a very large Jewish community that probably have had a gutful of the Labor Party's positioning in recent
The Labor Party's been completely wish-washy. I mean, some of them, the Prime Minister can't even bring himself to say anti-Semitism in regards, Christy, to the attack on Labor MP Josh Burns's office there in Melbourne this week. They seem to be scared of the word anti-Semitism. But Dan Andrews, what do you make of that appointment?
Look, the relationship with the Labor Party and the Jewish community in Melbourne is over. The Jewish community is desperately not just disappointed but sad that elected representatives of the Victorian community cannot stand up and do the right thing. Josh Burns has walked a very, very fine line within the Labor Party. Daniel Andrews is in business. And he cannot be in business in Melbourne with the relationship between Labor and the Jewish community the way it is. We know he's previously had some very close confidence people who represent the Jewish community in Victoria. He's out, he's hung up his shingle. He is a lobbyist, but not a lobbyist. If you read the press on that, he's looking to represent people in Victoria, and he knows that he needs support of the business community that has several prominent Jewish members to do that. But the best thing he could do is go and stand with Josh Burns as Josh Burns resigns from the Labor Party and runs as an independent and goes and campaigns with Michael Danby, the former member for the then Melbourne Ports, who is also very, very upset with the Labor Party and how that they have managed their messaging and their support for Israel. He is very, very upset. A long-held member of the Labor Party, a very respected former member, and that is my local seat. Okay. So if you're listening, I'm a constituent.
There you go. You've heard it first from Christy McSweeney. This is what she wants. This is the plan moving forward. No, but you're spot on. And Dan's got his medal now, so he's happy. He's shining.
Every award there is.
Every award, every accolade. Dan Andrews, Christy McSweeney, Tania Mihailuk. Good to have you both on tonight. Thank you so much for joining.